Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. I am the crazy short hairy dude. And on this episode, we are going to be discussing one of film histories and just history in general, um, true pioneers. He was a Hollywood pioneer, a visionary, and as far as I know, he was the first person in Hollywood to be not only a actor, but he also was a producer. He owned a studio himself. He was a director, a writer, and a composer. He composed music as well. So he did pretty much everything, uh, except maybe make the costumes themselves. So, yeah. So we are talking about Charlie Chaplin, hence the black and white. Uh, Charlie Chaplin was born April 16th, 1889. So Thursday was his birthday. And I meant to do this video then, but got distracted. Anyway, yeah, born 1889 in London, England. A little, well, kind of a little subdivision, I guess, of London called Walworth. And I don't know if there's any English people watching this. I'm probably butchering the names, but anyway, he was born into relative poverty. His both his parents were stage performers, and they did vaudeville and things like that. Um, his parents split when Charlie and his older brother Sidney were still pretty young, and they and Sidney and Charlie slowly watched their mother um, go crazy, go mad, and so they were in and out of different um, workhouses and charity schools and various things like that, while their mother was in and out of rehab and mental institutions and various things. Eventually, Sydney got a job with a vaudeville company with a guy named Fred Carno. I believe it was Fred Carno. It's also where Stan Laurel got his start of Laurel and Hardy fame. Um, and eventually, Charlie was able to get a job there too. And he impressed Carno so much with the way he was able to perform and do different vaudeville slapstick kind of stuff that eventually he took over as a main as one of the main actors when Stan Laurel left Carno uh, to do films. Uh, Eventually, Carno's company uh, went on tour in the U.S. and Chaplin was such a big hit that he got offered a job in movies with Max Sennett. You know, and so Chaplin got his got to start with film that way in the silent film era. Uh, yeah, it just kind of skyrocketed from there. He made a lot of different short films. Most of them were short films back then, um, for the most part, comedies, and that's where he came up with his iconic character, which became known as the Little Tramp. Now, this was tramp in the old sense of the word, meaning a homeless person, and he put on a bowler hat that didn't quite fit his head, and he had a small suit, jacket, and vest and tie, really baggy pants, and really big shoes, and a cane that bent really easily, made out of bamboo or what looked like bamboo. He also put on a little short mustache, which has since uh, come to ill fame. But here's a good picture of Charlie there as the little tramp. Yep. Um, yeah, his career skyrocketed from there, and throughout his life, he made about somewhere between 89 and 95 films. Most of them, the shorter ones, but eventually he was able to use his influence to start directing and then start writing, and then he opened up his own studio and uh, brought his brother along, and yeah, things were looking up for him. Now he also was a fan of the ladies. He he was married 4 times. First to Mildred Harris in October of 1918. They divorced about 3 years later uh, and had one child. Then he married Lita Gray in November of 1924, and they divorced in August of 1927. And they had 2 kids. Then he married his co-star Paulette Goddard in 1936, and they divorced in 1942. No children, but um, Goddard did star along with Chaplin in at least 2 films. His last silent film, Modern Times, and his first talkie, The Great Dictator. And over the years, they actually remained friends. And uh, after uh, Chaplin left the U.S. Uh, and lived in Switzerland, I believe it was, uh, for the rest of his life, Paula Goddard and her then husband actually moved to Switzerland, and they became neighbors of sorts. They had their own estates and land in between, but they became neighbors. So his last wife was uh, Una O'Neill, otherwise known as Una Chaplin. She was the daughter of the famous um, playwright Eugene O'Neill, and yeah, so they were married in. Let's see if I can pull it up here. In June of 1943, and they remained married until Chaplin's death on Christmas Day, 1977. Um, and they had 8 kids. So altogether, Chaplin had 11 kids. Um, yeah, and a lot of them are involved in. Well, all his kids were very talented, and they went on to do various things. Um, one of his kids, Geraldine Chaplin, went on to play her grandmother, uh, Hannah Chaplin, in the film, in the biopic called Chaplin, which starred Robert Downey Jr. as Charlie, and had just an all-star cast, directed by Richard Attenborough. It's a fantastic film if you've never seen it. Although, don't show it to kids. Is some adult stuff in there. So, um, and his granddaughter, named after Una, um, if I remember right, she was in the show Game of Thrones. Yep, yeah, she was in Game of Thrones as one of the Starks, Talissa Stark. Yeah. I haven't seen enough of the show to know who's who, but anyway, so Chaplin, he adored making films. He loved making people laugh, and he loved um, telling stories that were relevant and various things like that. He was, in fact, one of the first people, one of the only people in Hollywood who actually denounced Hitler. Um, I mean, I know that's odd to hear, but back in the 30s, especially the late 30s, before World War II actually started, a lot of people in Hollywood were looking at what Hitler was doing in Germany, and they were actually applauding it because he was building out factories and building roads and all these things, which seemed good. Little did they know he had nefarious purposes, and so there was a lot of things that they were supporting there. But Chaplin along with a few others. Um, they saw through the lies and saw how he was treating the Jewish people and things like that. Which Chaplin himself was not Jewish, but his brother Sidney, who was a half brother, um, he actually was Jewish. So Chaplin had a lot of feeling towards the Jewish people and a lot of respect for them, and so yeah, he didn't like what Hitler was doing. So and up until um, his first talkie, The Great Dictator, Chaplin refused to add, you know, dialogue and, that kind of sound to his films because he believed that the his character, the little tramp that he played throughout all these years, he believed that if the moment he spoke, the magic was lost. It'd be like a ballet dancer coming out and explaining exactly what was going to happen before actually dancing, in his opinion. Uh, but he decided if the character was gonna go out, he would go out saying something that was important. So he made the film The Great Dictator, and in that film, yeah, it is a comedy, but it is also uh, a critique of and a criticism of, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime at the time, and also looking at just the fascist movement that was going on at the time in Germany and in Italy, where he was really just kind of calling them out by making a comedy. But at the end, he gives this speech. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything, but Chaplin plays two characters in the film. He plays the dictator, Adenoid Hinkle. Yeah, a little fun there. And then he also played a Jewish barber. And the Jewish barber and Adenoid Hinkle happen to look alike. So there's some confusion there, and then at some point in the film there is a swap of the two, and so at the end it's the Jewish barber who's getting up and making this speech as the dictator. Although he's not, he's kind of disbanding things at that point, but it's a very poignant speech, uh, and a lot of people in the U.S. at the time criticized him, thought he was a communist for making a speech like that. But uh, Chaplin wasn't really a communist. He considered himself more of a humanist. Uh, but he loved America. He loved democracy. And, well, he loved democratic republic. He loved capitalism and all those things because he profited off of capitalism. So he was all for the free market enterprise and pulling oneself up, um, and working hard and earning a living. He was all for that. Uh, anyway, so after that particular film, he went on and did a few more talkies, including one of my favorite ones, which was kind of a darker uh, comedy called Monsieur Verdoux, which is it's French. He plays a French character named Henri Verdoux, who in order to support his own wife and child, his wife is in a wheelchair. Um, he goes around France and he marries different women and kills them for their money. Um, Now, in the film, you don't see him actually kill anybody, um, but yeah, it is a darker subject matter. But there is a lot of comedy in it, and some social commentary as well. Um, yeah, of course, his own wife and child don't know what he's doing exactly. They just know he's away a lot. Um, it's a fantastic film. If you've never seen it, I do recommend it. A lot of his films you can actually see on HBO Max. They have a lot of his old short silent films, and then they have some of his other ones, his longer ones, like The Kid, which uh, the which he plays an adoptive father to uh, this little boy. And if you've ever seen the original Addams Family television series, it was in black and white, and it was on TV. It's where the Addams Family theme song comes from. The actor who plays Uncle Fester he was the kid in that film. He was that was him as a child actor. So that's kind of a little cool thing there. See, he also made different films like The Circus is a famous one, and The Gold Rush. Um, his last silent film called Modern Times, and that one it's a comedy, but again a social commentary on just the way the world was kind of headed at that point, where everything was becoming mechanized and um, moving towards kind of communism and things like that, and the individual person was being lost in the machinery kind of thing. Um, yeah, great movie too. Yeah, Chaplin, on the sadder side of things, Chaplin didn't really get along with the FBI so much, especially with J. Edgar Hoover, which you can see some of that played out in the biopic. Um, at some point later in his life, after he'd married his fourth and final wife, Una, um, he took his family on a vacation back to England, and the FBI pulled some strings and got his return visa denied. Chaplin had never applied for citizenship in the U.S. Um, and so he was basically banished from the U.S. Um, very unceremoniously, and it devastated him. He hated being banished from the U.S. and because he loved America. Um, and he wanted to do everything he could to stay. Um, and he did what he did best. He made a film called A King in New York, which is about a king who, due to some political reasons, is stuck in New York. He's banished from his own country, and he's trying to get back. Uh, Also on HBO Max. Uh, Chaplin spent a number of years kind of in retirement of sorts. He did some various things. He wrote an autobiography called My Autobiography, uh, which is what the film Chaplin is based off of. Um, then he was invited back to the U.S. eventually, and for an honorary Oscar. And this was kind of before they did the Lifetime Achievement Awards and things like that. So he was invited back for an honorary Oscar to commemorate his work in Hollywood. And you know, I think Chaplin uh, might have had the idea that, uh, oh, maybe they'd forgotten him. They considered him a washed up, silent film actor or something. But when they showed clips of his films, the audience loved it. They laughed, they cried, and he has the record for the longest standing ovation in Oscars history. The lights came on, Chaplin was standing at the podium, and everybody stood up and cheered for several minutes. Um, yeah, it was it was awesome. It was awesome. You can watch the video on YouTube as well. It's it's really cool to see. After that, he was later knighted by the Queen of England for his work, so he became Sir Charlie Chaplin or Sir Charles Chaplin. And then he made one more film called Countess from Hong Kong, something like that. I believe it was a Countess from Hong Kong. Yeah, and that was in 1967. Um, that was the last film he directed. It starred Marlon Brando and Sophia Loren, and Chaplin himself makes just a cameo appearance as I think a waiter or a busboy or something, a bellhop maybe. Um, yeah, and then in 1977, yeah, on Christmas Day, he passed away at the age of, where is it at? Yeah. Uh, want to say he was 88, something like that. Yeah, you can do the math. Uh, Died of a stroke, but he was surrounded by family. Uh, so yeah, that is the life of Charlie Chaplin in brief little history. Uh, I do recommend going and trying to find his films. You can probably find some of the short ones on YouTube. Uh, that's where I first started watching them, and now I have a, a decent collection of different Chaplin films. Um, and again, HBO Max has several on there. It's part of the Turner Classic Movies collection. Um, so yeah. Anyway, hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody is happy. We've got some things coming up this week. We have the Battle of San Jacinto, which we're going to talk about. That's coming up on Tuesday. And then we're going to be talking about William Shakespeare next week as well. So we're going to talk about a little bit about him and some of his more famous works. I'll be probably quoting from some of my favorites of his. Yeah. So until next time, hope everybody stays well and remember, Jesus loves you. Good night.